Good evening. It's now 6:30, and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda this evening is announcements. There are several announcements this evening. We'll be kicking off our 2026 budget discussion on Monday, June 23rd at 5 p.m. during our City Council workshop. Council will be reviewing and discussing preliminary 2026 budget projections. All meetings of the City Council, including workshops, are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. Anyone wishing to attend our council meetings or workshops in person, please contact our city clerk in advance. In other announcements, we've been installing new park signage throughout the park system. We encourage everyone to explore the 4 tiers of the signage that have been integrated into the park system, which are designed to enhance your experience and connection to our parks. We kicked off our summer hours this past week here at City Hall. Office hours are 8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday, and 8 a.m. to noon on Fridays through Labor Day. We'll be recognizing our volunteers on Monday, June 9th at 5:30 p.m. at the Bayfront Park as part of our annual volunteer recognition event. During this event, we will also formally recognize the Victoria Business Association, who is named our 2025 Community Builder. Everyone is welcome. We encourage anyone planning to attend to register in advance with the city clerk. Last note is our city offices will be closed on Thursday, June 19th in recognition of Juneteenth. The next item on our agenda this evening is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt the final agenda?
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is open forum. This is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. No one has registered to speak in advance, but is there anyone in the audience this evening who wishes to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll move on to our next item, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and do not require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent agenda items for separate discussion and vote this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Is there anyone on the council wishing to pull any items from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I will ask the audience. Is there any member of the audience who wishes to pull an item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote this evening? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The first item on our regular agenda is item 6.1, which is to consider the establishment of a tax increment financing district 1 to 10 for an affordable housing project located within Victoria Ridge. We previously opened the public hearing on this item and took public comment during our April 28th meeting, but have kept the public hearing open for comment until this evening. Before we open the floor for public comment again, I would like to first welcome Community and Economic Development Director Jen Brewington to provide a brief overview of the project. Ms. Brewington, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So the city has received an application requesting a tax increment financing assistance to support the development of a 162-unit apartment building. The proposed project will have 129 market rate units and 33 affordable units designed for households earning up to 50% of the area median income, AMI. To establish a TIF district for affordable housing, the city council must first hold a public hearing to review the request. This hearing will allow the City Council to evaluate whether the proposed TIF district provides community benefits such as affordable housing and to address any public concerns. Tammy Amdale is here tonight and she will shortly go over the housing TIF district information. The project site covers approximately 4.1 acres. For location reference, the Marsh Hollow development is situated the northwest of the property, And County Road 11, Victoria Drive, runs along the eastern boundary, offering key access to Marsh Hollow and nearby areas. I will now turn it over to Tammy Amdahl for a more in-depth presentation regarding the subsidy request.
Thank you. Ms. Almdahl, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. Tammy Amdahl with Northland Public Finance, serving as advisor. I'm going to go through a few slides, just some background on tax increment financing, and then I have a few slides that are specific to the application and the terms for assistance. But first, on slide 4, tax increment financing. The city has established TIF districts before. TIF is short for tax increment financing. And TIF, as far as the definition, really means, in its simplicity, the capturing of the increase in value. There is no forgiving of property taxes. The property will pay its taxes. Tax increment allows the city council, upon approval of a tax increment financing district, to consider the use of certain taxes, the increase in taxes, to assist a development that otherwise would not occur but for the TIF assistance. And there's a bunch of bullet points up there speaking to that specifically with respect to TIF. The purpose of tax increment financing, and in statute often called the but-for test, that but for the assistance, that a project as proposed would not be feasible in the reasonably foreseeable future. But TIF is about stimulating growth that otherwise would not occur, creating jobs, retaining existing tax base, encouraging development of uses that otherwise would not occur, enhancing tax base, facilitating infrastructure improvements when appropriate, and then coordinate new development with existing plans. The request before you this evening and the purpose of the public hearing is the consideration of establishment of a tax increment financing housing district and proposed to be TIF District 1-10. The duration of the TIF district is proposed to be 15 years. I would note that that is less than the statutory maximum that would have been allowable of 26 years. The reason for a shorter duration, upon review of the application and that need for assistance for the project to be financially feasible, it was determined that 15 years was the appropriate number of years, and the agreement with the developer reflects that 15-year term as well. So very important point, this will not be for the statutory maximum 26 years. It will be limited to a duration no greater than 15 years. The revenue derived from housing districts, different than redevelopment districts, which is the type of the last 2 districts established by the city. For a housing district, TIF can only be used to directly assist the construction and the development of those affordable housing units. There are income limitations, and either 40% of the units need to be leased to persons at 60% of the area-wide median income, or 20% of the units to persons at 50% of the AMI. The agreement with the developer will provide for 20% of the units affordable at 50% AMI, as Jen indicated in her opening comments. That is for the duration of the district, so that term not to exceed 15 years, that at least once a year that the developer will certify to the city that in fact those units have been income qualified. There is not a restriction on rent with TIF districts. That sometimes is confusing because you think income limitation in rents. It is solely based upon income of those tenants. Sometimes when a developer seeks other funding sources such as tax credit or other sources, there can be rent restrictions. Here, the TIF is solely related to income qualifying those tenants. With respect to the terms and the projected project, the estimated average annual tax increment revenue from the project is estimated at approximately $380,000 per year. That's an estimate because that's based upon an assumption for taxable market value. It's based upon an assumption for what future tax rates will be. All of those factors, among others, will impact that annual increment. But at this point in time, that $380,000 is a reasonable estimate, and is also the basis upon which the TIF plan was developed. Pursuant to a development agreement that is also before the City Council tonight, the developer would receive 90% of the tax increment generated from the district payable on a semi-annual basis pursuant to when taxes are paid, semi-annual. So 90% of the actual increment generated to reimburse up to approximately $3.5 million of project costs over that 15-year term. The developer will have to prove up those project costs. In a moment, I'll have a slide that details those costs. But after those are proved up, then the city, pursuant to the agreement, will act to make those payments. With respect, and I know there's small font here, I just want to focus on the developer reimbursement, which is the far right column. So of the total increment, it's estimated that $3,458,000, that was my rounded approximate $3.5 million reimbursement of eligible project costs, which will include the land acquisition at an estimated $2,250,000 and site improvements at approximately $1.2 million. The reimbursement to the developer of the approximate $3.5 million is payable with interest. The reason for that is the city is providing pay-go assistance. The city is not providing the developer any funds up front. As the developer pays their property taxes pursuant to that agreement and the 90% of the increment that is pledged, the city will make payments to the developer to reimburse principal up to that approximate $3.5 million payable with interest until the 3.5 is reimbursed or the 15 years has come to pass, whichever occurs first. The city will retain the remaining 10% of the increment to reimburse any actual admin costs. Any funds in excess of actual costs incurred are returned to the county for redistribution to the city's general fund, the county, and the school. With respect to the timeline, you've heard this from me before with other districts, there's certain requirements of notices, including to the county commissioner, to the school district, to the county auditor. All those notices did occur. The county was notified, as of the school district, of the public hearing, which was continued to this evening. So tonight on the agenda, go one more, there is actually 3 action items. There's the motion to adopt the resolution approving the modification of the development program for Development District Number 1 and a tax increment financing plan for Tax Increment Financing District 1-10. TIF districts are established within boundaries of development districts. In Victoria, Development District Number 1 boundaries are actually coterminous with your municipal boundaries, but there is a modification to that to allow for this TIF district within. There is a proposed motion to adopt a resolution authorizing an interfund loan for the advance of certain costs in connection with the TIF district. That relates solely to any administration costs that the city may incur in advance of collecting your increment to reimburse yourself. So that was in the council's packet. And the last one is not a resolution, it is a motion to approve the contract for private development by and between the City of Victoria and Victoria South Apartments, LLC. That contract was also in the council's packet for this evening. With that, Madam Mayor, council members, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have for me.
Very good. Thanks, Ms. Omdahl. Council, any questions for Ms. Omdahl before we continue our public hearing?
I have 2.
Councilmember Pedersen.
Is TIF transferable? We've seen buildings that have TIF agreements that then get sold to another group, and that ends up being something that's probably as valuable as the full residence of the location. Is there anything you can put on it to stop the transferability of TIF, or is that something that has to stay?
Great question. So the development agreement and agreements in prior TIF districts require that the developer seek an assignment of that agreement or note, and for the city council to consider approval. Development agreements stay with the entity that entered into it. So if property is sold, it doesn't go with the property. It stays with the developer. So that's part of the private transaction when land or property is sold, and whether or not that developer who owns it seeks to place or assign, that agreement and a TIF node to a new party.
Okay.
And there is language in the current agreement that's before you related to that. Cities tend to, without exception in my experience, not withhold assignments, but most cities seek to have that language in their contracts so that you get to review it and then consent to it. And really, on a practical standpoint, you need to know too, because you need to know who to make that payment to.
Sure.
And your second question?
Second question is, we're establishing this TIF district for 20% of the 162 units to be rented out to those with 50% AMI, but that doesn't dictate the monthly rent costs. Is that correct, or is that, I don't know how that works. Can they still charge $1,000 per unit for the people with an AMI below 50%, just like they would with somebody who has a AMI above the 50%? Or are they required to have a rent that's half the price?
There is no requirement on rent, so there's no rent limitations or restrictions. There is a limitation on the income, so they must income qualify a minimum of 20% of those units, or approximately 33 of the units, to persons that are income qualified at that 50% of AMI.
Okay. So it's not really helping somebody to live there, it's just giving them the opportunity to live there and then pay the same as everybody else. Is that correct?
In most cases, and including in the application that the developer provided, they had rents proposed that were at the affordable level. They're not restricted, but their plan is to rent those. Now, I'm emphasizing there is no requirement on the rents. There is a limitation on the incomes only.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, council? Okay. Thank you. Stay close, Tammy, just in case. Okay, this is a public hearing, and we will now continue the public hearing from April 28th. If there is anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record, please. If anyone would like to speak to this item, they can step forward now. And last call. All right. Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing and open the floor for council discussion. Council, any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing none then, we have 3 actions in front of us, and I will entertain the first action.
Motion to adopt resolution approving the modification of the development program for Development District Number 1 and a tax increment financing plan for tax increment financing District 1-10.
Nicely said. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. A second motion, please.
Motion to adopt resolution authorizing an intra-fund loan for advance for certain costs in connection with tax increment financing and housing district number 1-10.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the final motion, please.
Motion to approve contract for private development buy-in between the City of Victoria and Victoria South Apartments LLC.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our next item, 6.2, is a public hearing to approve a temporary noise permit for 8237 Trillium Lane. Presenting on this item this evening is our City Clerk, Claudia Edisfold. Ms. Edisfold, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. The applicant has submitted, can you get my presentation? The applicant has submitted a temporary noise permit for 8237 Trillium Way. This is for a birthday celebration to be held on May 31st from 9 p.m. to 1 p.m.
1 a.m.?
1 a.m., sorry, 1 a.m. So council is able to authorize a temporary noise permit as long as certain conditions have been met. And those specific conditions are the noise will be temporary, the cost to reduce the noise is too high, there are no other alternative actions for the applicant, and it provides entertainment for the neighborhood. It outweighs any negative effects on the public health or safety. All residents within 300 feet were notified of the public hearing that was to be held tonight.
Okay. Did we receive any comments prior to that?
We have not received any comments.
Thank you. Anything further, Ms. Edisfold?
I would request that you open the public hearing as mandated per our municipal code 12.26.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone present who wishes to speak to this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak about the temporary noise permit, please step forward. And last chance. All right, seeing none, I will now close the public hearing. And council, is there any questions or discussion among council on this item? All right, we are looking for one motion. Council, can I get a motion, please? I'll make a motion.
Click it over.
We have a motion to approve a temporary noise permit for 8237 Trillium Lane for the excess noise between the hours of 9 p.m. and 1 a.m. on Saturday, May 31st, 2025. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda this evening is item 6.3, which is a public hearing regarding annual liquor license renewals in the city of Victoria, which covers the time period July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Presenting again this evening is City Clerk Claudia Edisfold. Ms. Edisfold, to this item, please.
Madam Mayor and council members, it's that time of year again to renew our annual liquor licenses. This year, we have received 13 renewals. There are no changes made to any of the licenses. The notice was published in the Sun Patriot on May 15th, and it was posted on the website and on the electronic monitor. The chart before you shows all the license listed for the calendar year and their total fees collected. Okay. Staff recommends that you open the public hearing as required by Victoria Municipal Code, Chapter 4.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Edisfold. This is a public hearing. I will now open the public hearing. If there's anyone who wishes to speak to this item, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to speak to this item, please step forward. And last call. Seeing no one, I will now close the public hearing and ask the council if there is any discussion among the council members on this item. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adopt resolution approving the renewal of liquor licenses from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026.
We have
City
a,
of Victoria, Minnesota.
thank you, sorry. I stepped on you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. Motion carries. The next item on our agenda this evening is item 6.4, which is to review a revised concept plan for the Downtown West Phase 2. Presenting on this item this evening, we welcome back Community and Economic Development Director Jen Brewington. Ms. Brewington, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. So I just want to provide some background information for those folks watching on how we got here today. So the city has owned land known as Downtown West since 2006, located by the Dairy Queen. The vision for Downtown West has been to be an extension of our current downtown, welcoming new businesses, housing, gathering spaces, and other amenities that we currently love with our current downtown. Phase 1 is currently under development, and next March, we look forward to welcoming the residents at the Olivine Apartment Building opening in March. So Phase 2 for Downtown West did originate through a formal request and RFP proposal, and the reason why we did that was to ensure transparent competitive selection. This allowed the city to evaluate a range of developer qualifications and the visions for the site. On January 27th, 2025, Victoria City Council approved an exclusive development agreement with Victoria DW LLC to lead Downtown West Phase 2. The Victoria DW team presented a concept for Phase 2 development during a city workshop on March 10th, 2025, and council is now being asked to review and provide feedback on a revised concept, which incorporates feedback from the March 10th workshop. Key areas of discussion for Phase 2 will include residential density and design, commercial and retail components, and the integration of open space to support a connected and walkable downtown environment. I'm now going to turn over to the development team for further discuss their updated concept. However, when their discussion is over, I am going to ask Kara, our city engineer, to come up and give some discussion on the public improvement piece.
Very good, thank you. Mr. Runk, are you leading us off this evening?
I am, yes. Hi,
Welcome.
Mayor and members of the council. So as
Excuse me, can you just state your name and address for the
Sure.
record? Thanks.
Carl Runk and address 3921 Campello Curve, Chaska.
Thank you.
We were last with you, as you know, in this room on March 10th, and at that time we had 8 iterations of the concept plan. We updated now at that point to iteration 9 we presented that day, and then this is iteration 10. And we've incorporated your feedback into it. If you saw the letter we included and took everything to heart that you mentioned to us about as important to you in pulling this off on what is an expansion of downtown Victoria. So to aid the visuals, we have a fly-through or a couple of quick fly-throughs we wanted to put on the screen for you to look at and then hear your feedback and hopefully move to the next step on this project. So this is going faster than I thought. This is going through what is the new Main Street on the overall plan you saw with 2 restaurants we're proposing that are 5,000 square feet or about that, anchoring that active plaza in the middle. And something that's significant that we've updated on this is that right building there, it's a mixed-use building with the City of Victoria space and HOA club space. The prior iteration had the club space in a building up on top of the hill by the condo buildings and walk-up townhomes. And part of the feedback at the workshop in March was bringing that down and making it mixed use. And so we're proposing this mixed use building anchoring that part of the development. And we have an interested tenant potentially to be there. That would be a coffee user that could potentially go there. You know, obviously we're not marketing the space officially at any of these spaces, but we've had preliminary conversations. This steps down, you know, using the hill, the terrace to that City of Victoria community space that could have for parties and events rented by the community, public bathrooms and storage. And then there's the active plaza again that we're starting to develop, you know, working with the city of what that is. And zooming out here again. But this is, in our minds, a central piece of the entire master plan, and it now also connects with the central green, being part of our plan that you're moving ahead with next to Olivine Apartments. And this is another fly-through of that central area. So this area has expanded from our last iteration to about 12,000 square feet. There's patio seating that activates, you know, from the restaurants activating that plaza space for programming. And then having this community space be facing it will create a new center of energy, we think, for downtown West. And this goes up the hill again towards where some of the first residential buildings would be. And we could, Jen, go to the overall image, if you can go to that one that's static that we can look at. And then perhaps the 3D version if you go down a slide or two. So we're proposing, as you might have saw in our diagrams, phase 1 that we would, assuming that we're on the same page with the overall plan here, that we would further develop the architecture and the streets and landscape architecture and the public spaces for a phase 1 application. And we're looking at that with our timeline being in July. So if we're on the same page about this overall master plan, we'd like to move ahead with the 4 retail buildings in the new Main Street which, as you notice, is designed a lot like the current downtown Victoria with angled parking, about the same dimensions, the same street lights, the same feel and character, and then having 2 anchoring restaurants that we believe would be the great uses right there, and then a mix of different retail uses that would be good co-tenants with the restaurants on the south side of the main street. And then at the visual looking down that main street is towards Carver Park Reserve and the Central Green area. The residential buildings shown are 3 to 4 stories. They're all in this scenario shown at 4 stories. And that was based on feedback from you last time to not do the 1-story villa product. We know that that villa product is in demand, but your comments were probably not here. This is, you get one shot at developing this piece of land for an expansion of downtown, and that was too low of density. And so we're up to condo buildings on the right side there on the east side that will look over Carver Park Reserve and Steiger Lake. And then also condos and walk-up townhomes that are in the middle, their upper middle part of the diagram. And we're proposing that we start phasing this with what's next to Steiger Lake Lane, the new expansion going north. And then as time goes on, phase 2 and 3 we're proposing are the building to the west there that would be looking at Lake Auburn over Highway 11. And then the future multifamily building and retail that's at the south side there. So I just kind of shared quickly, high level, what is updated since we last met with you, and we're excited about the plan. We think that there's a lot of potential to move to the next step with you, but it starts in our mind with talking about the financial considerations as a next step if we approve this, if you approve this concept we're at now, and moving into a sketch plat application this summer would be our goal.
How many condos in each of those condo buildings on that first?
So there are currently 14 designed in each of those buildings.
Okay.
So they're all, again, these are 2-bedroom units and bigger. These are not apartments. These are, like homes in that way. So their average unit size is going to span between 1,200 square feet to 3,000 square feet. And whereas most apartment buildings are in town here around 850 square feet to 1,000 square feet average, these are starting at a much larger size because we think that's where the market is based on our research, that there's a demand for 2-bedroom or bigger units, not necessarily smaller units that way.
And owner occupied, right?
Owner occupied, yes, for the condo buildings. And the whiter buildings that are shown on the north side would be walk-up units that are 2-story townhomes with flats or condos above those as well to get to 3 to 4-story heights. Because we think it makes sense to have units that people could walk up to that would have 2 levels in that case instead of just single level only. So it adds variety of product type in our minds, for what's up there. And so before we'd come to you with a sketch plat application, we'd really refine those buildings as far as what the exact unit floor plans are. But we have a pretty good idea now that of what the unit count looks like with those footprints and what those views are looking north, east, west. There's good views in all directions using the topography of the site up higher.
What was was it 3 or 4 stories that those condo buildings were, Carl?
Those are shown as 3 stories with there are 4 stories with the 4 stories step back more if you look at on the east side.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. And then
we did lose a condo building from the last iteration.
Yep.
We had 4 buildings, but the Central Green is staying, as from our understanding, is going to be built. And so we were able to modify it and take advantage of the depth of land a little more, so the buildings are a little bit longer, you see in the lower 2 ones, to make up for the unit counts that we lost, to mostly make up for it.
Got it. And that third condo building, that's the last one there, is that 14 units roughly too? Or is that a little smaller?
They're all 14 units.
They're all 14,
Yeah,
okay,
so that
got
one
it.
is rotated.
It just rotated, it's size-wise, it's the same.
Right, so it fits within kind of that sliver pie shape parcel that's left over from Steiger Lake Lane. And then what we're proposing is a trail behind that, so it'll be a private sidewalks and trails, or not, where it's open to the public. But we met with Three Rivers Parks planning staff and their superintendent, and they are not recommending, today at least, to put a trail going north directly there on the Carver Park Reserve. That's a future trail. They're recommending that we just add wayfinding signage inside of downtown West and use the bike trail that's connecting along Highway 5 and 11. That'll go up to Carver Park Reserve from there. So they're working with us on what that is, but right now there are trails as part of the approved plan for the highway improvements in the roundabout that goes to the south side of the site and then north. And we think a lot of people will probably choose to go through our site, through Steiger Lake Lane, and because of the destination it is that we're creating. and have bike parking, and there's bathrooms, and there's places to drink and eat there as well.
And then on that public, the restrooms and that active plaza, is that going to be, those restrooms will be under the City of Victoria's responsibility? Is that correct?
We're proposing that it feels like a City of Victoria space, and it could be condoed off, so the city owns it, or it could be leased. We're open-minded to what that is. And how it's designed and sized, it's still up for, design with the city, what that is. Right now, those are 5,000 square foot floor plates, and they could flex a little bit in terms of what's exactly inside of those floor plates.
Okay. And then that mixed-use building, we're talking about like retail on the main level.
And an HOA clubhouse as well in there. So the fitness room and club space for all the residents that own homes there would enter into that building. So that building would have HOA clubhouse space, city space, and potentially a tenant, coffee tenant. We're talking specifically that wants to be there potentially.
On that one level,
On that
all
one
on
level,
that one
yeah.
level.
And then there's other uses we're considering up above to be defined exactly yet. They're commercial uses.
Basic office space.
Yeah, it could be flex space that we're trying to determine the market exactly for that yet. So when we come to you if we come to the phase 1 application, which we hope to this summer, we'll define that further after doing our deep dive in the market for that building. And we know for sure the program today is those first 2 floors, but floors 3 and 4, we need to really dive into that further.
And remind me, Carl, is this 4 stories on all of the buildings is the max height?
That's the max that we are showing right now, yeah. So 4 stories max, around 2, if this is all built out as shown, it's around 200 units between all the condos and the townhomes and the future multifamily, which is in that range that we were talking about the workshop in terms of a Met Council minimum that you were seeking here.
So multifamily is an apartment complex.
Yes, yes.
Is there a reason why you would put the apartment complex there and the future condos to the west as opposed to future condos instead of the apartment complex?
It was only because views really matter, and condos even more than apartments. They matter in both, but Lake Auburn views, I'm sure you've stood on that site, are really good to the west, and we wanted to capture Lake Auburn views, and we're thinking that condos could use those. And then all the traffic, and as the future keeps building out in this area, we think it keeps getting more traffic on Highway 5, that we're thinking that the apartments maybe look that direction, is why we're thinking. But yeah, we're
You're
looking
the
at
expert.
future.
I'm just, it's a better explanation than what I was thinking, so thank you.
Yeah, and what really helps the residential units up there is that it's, naturally, 20, 30 feet higher than Highway 5, so we're up pretty high up there, and using that topography is unique. I mean, to be able to be that high up in the air and look at these views all around in that way for the residences.
For the restaurants, it looks like there's plenty of patio space outside. I'm just curious if there's thoughts of, using the rooftops on those for potential patio spaces too, or do you typically not build like?
Typically not. I mean, we're listening closely to the restaurant operators out there, and they like to operate at one level. It's more challenging, my understanding, operating in 2 levels of space. If there is a second level, one of the operators we're talking to would like to do a speakeasy as part of it. And if this speakeasy might want to be in the basement for a cool vibe, but it also might not make sense to dig a basement. It might make sense to put it next to it in the same space somehow. But right now, I think there's so much horizontal space that it flows easy for patio seating. And one of the operators we're talking to likes the idea even of having the patio seating wrapping around to the north slightly towards all that green space. And so it's shielded from noise on Highway 5. It's with a lot of trees and vegetation. It'll feel private back there.
I would just say too, I know when we've looked at other commercial developments that have come before us, right? We always talk a lot about how we want the buildings closer to the road, right? So that for visibility and stuff, but I think this is perfect how it is. Like I get why typically we like to do that for certain things, but for this project, right, we're trying to go for connectivity. We're trying to go for, bringing all these different buildings together, right? And if you swapped the parking lot and put the future multifamily, right, like spots, now you got a big parking lot in a potential green space, right? So I know that's something that typically we don't like to do, is not to have the buildings off of the highway and the parking lot there, but I think for this development, like it it brings that connectivity together. All those buildings are close together. You've got those green spaces in the middle where people can come together. So I like how it looks.
Yeah, that's our goal throughout this, working together and it's not without risk. I mean, the most retail tenants and restaurants like highway visibility, lots of parking, nothing in between, and this comes with a little risk in that way. So it takes visionary tenants too to say, we believe in this concept in downtown expanding like this.
And it probably helps a little bit that, right, from our workshop that we had, right, the middle tends to be higher, right, than the end. So it's not like it's lower in the middle so people can't see those buildings. Those buildings should sit up kind of up on that, right? So
Right, topography is our friend here in that way,
Yep.
right? That we can hopefully use that for people on Highway 5 seeing into there.
Yep.
I agree with what Councilman Roberts brings up about the flow. I think it's very solid. The one question I have on the active plaza, I love that. Remind me, is that 12,000 square feet roughly is what you're
Roughly
thinking for
12,000
that?
square feet now.
I'm trying to envision what could be done in that area, but gathering space and family and just I'm trying to visualize that space because I think it's important here.
Yeah.
It's huge, so it's great.
There was a precedent we found in Easton, Ohio, this town center, which had similar dimensions to this with 2 restaurants, actually had 4 restaurants surrounding it.
Yeah.
But it had, a lot of spaces for all generations. It had swings, it had, board games, it had all types of things that could be done. And then if concerts happen, they could happen there as well. And if it's not just happening here at the bandstand, it could happen in that space. So we'd like to work with the city and work with Max Music and our consultant that knows this stuff, who works for 50th and France, who works for Wayzata, to help program that together, what that is.
Yeah, and then you think about winter. What can you do differently in this different seasons, right? I know we talked about some of this stuff in the workshop, but no, this looks great.
Talk through the phasing, how many phases you think this will take and kind of timeline. I mean, I know the market drives a lot of it, but let's talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, in this diagram, we think that it'll help set the tone for the entire project, having that retail and town center in as the first phase. So we're showing that in a perfect world, we come to you this summer with a sketch plat application that's approved by this fall, and we have public-private agreements approved by this fall as well, that we would start this fall. We close on financing, close on the land, or that part of the land ideally, and start this fall and open by next year already. What would be the retail buildings, the active plaza, the mixed-use building, and the first 2 residential buildings at the top of the hill. And our goal is to just start and set a tone that way and build this in phases, likely with the blue area, those condos next, because those really have that's the best site, part of the whole project, we think, in terms of the views and where that is up there. And then see how the market absorbs those before going to the condo building that we'll be looking over Lake Auburn, and then the multifamily building. The multifamily building, of course, we're showing last because there's several apartment projects that are in various phases of development and leasing right now, and there's the Amir project that's approved, and we don't know if that's happening across Highway 5 nearby as well, and that impacts exactly what we look at for that building as well. So that's our objective right now, and then the retail below, we think it'd be great to have a center of gravity established before expanding further west in that case, with the additional retail. But we would like flexibility in our ultimate agreements with you on phasing this per the market, because the market might react a little bit differently than we're thinking on this too.
Sure. But, I mean, some of these things in the later phases, you've got the flexibility to be able to pivot on the type of product or what you're looking for based on what the market's doing.
That's what we'd like to do, yes. And I think the city would too, that we all want this to be successful
Absolutely.
and be absorbed. We don't want this to be lingering, many, many, many years away, because it wasn't done right. So we want to react to the market in phases, and we think the first phase is a good one to start with, and then that really creating an attraction here to add to Olivine and add to the Central Green in that case.
Council, other questions, comments on this? Do you have some other slides you want to show us on this? You want to roll through those other slides quickly, or are we good?
Well, these are more static images of
Oh,
the
yeah.
video, as you saw
Okay.
there. And
So these are just kind of, these don't really have the architectural.
no, the architecture we fully develop, we'll have it more clearly rendered, because we like to bring it to you for sketch plat, but also the market. We want to really take this out to the whole market to make sure everyone clearly understands what this is. It's still kind of a sketchy phase yet.
Yeah, good. All right. Council, other comments, questions for the development team here? I think we're headed in the right direction. Seeing nods all around here.
I agree.
Okay, great.
Good. All right, we do have some action to take here, so we are looking, council, can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the revised concept plan for Downtown West Phase 2 and authorize staff to enter into negotiations for land sale.
Very good, we have a motion, can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We have, did we want to do that, did we want to hear from you before we did that? It doesn't matter, okay. Very good, so now we have City Engineer Kara Guerin with some comments on this project, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just going to give the council a quick update on the public infrastructure that surrounds this.
All right, very good, thank you.
Seems important.
Ms. Karen, it does. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. So just a couple of things that we wanted to touch base with the council that are moving fast and furious in support of this development and the Olivine project. So first and foremost, I am not going to talk about the Highway 5 and 11 project because you've heard me talk about that endlessly. That is shown in orange, underlying this graphic. That project, we are opening bids on that project on Thursday, so that will be back in front of you on June 9th. But the other thing that is in process, so the Olivine project, as Jen noted, is moving along quickly, and they are scheduled for opening in March. So as part of that project, we have the Steiger Lake Lane portion of the project. There's too many projects. Construction of Steiger Lake Lane up past the front of their building is being constructed as part of the 5 and 11 project. So we've talked about that. So we are using some federal funds and state funds to construct the connection of just Steiger Lake Lane. We're putting sewer and water through the site as part of the 5 and 11 project. We were able to tap into some of our outside funding for a portion of the Steiger Lake Lane project costs. And then we're paying for the sewer and water. Beyond that, though, we have to build Pretty Things and the Central Green as part of our development agreement with the Olivine project. So Kimley Horn, the City Council authorized many months ago now to work on the preliminary design package for the Pretty Things and the Central Green. So Pretty Things would be sidewalk adjacent to the Olivine project and our streetscape package. So pavers, lighting, landscaping that matches what we built along Steiger Lake Lane, just this completed, whenever it was, last year. And then the design and construction of the Central Green, as well as construction of the stormwater management facility that's needed to treat stormwater runoff from the Pretty Things, the Central Green, and the rest of the Olivine building. So my team from Kimley Horn is working on that project as this whole process has been moving forward. So we are blending all of these different visions together. And so with the action the council has taken here tonight, we obviously are not going to build a giant stormwater pond in the area that we all just talked about putting retail buildings. And so with the action here tonight, we will be moving forward with looking to incorporate stormwater management underneath the Central Green, so underground, so that we aren't using surface area where we want to have retail and other functions. So we'll be taking the direction that the council took tonight, further refining the preliminary design package, and then bringing back to the council probably on the 9th authorization for final design, because we have to put a bid package yet out this year to if we can stay on track, get the central green constructed yet this fall, after Stagger Lake Lane is built, so that we can, at the very minimum, have half a parking lot constructed when Olivine opens their doors in March of next year. So,
Lots of moving parts.
yes,
And lots of stuff to keep track of.
yes.
Can you remind me how big the green space is and then how many parking spots? Where, like, it feels like we talked about this forever ago, because it probably was, but.
We just counted them up when we met, but we are refining
Yeah.
the central green and the parking spots in conjunction with what you all just saw tonight. And so those two designs are coming together.
Basically to make
everything-
sure that there's enough additional parking for Olivine and what we're discussed today.
Correct, yeah. We're working very closely with the team here in the room tonight and the Kimley Horn team and what we had already planned for from the Olivine project to get all the pieces to come together. So wanted to just let the council know how all the pieces are fitting together, and you will be seeing an authorization for final design here soon.
Okay.
The big question is, are you juggling enough projects? You have enough? We can get more.
Well, I'm happy to, I guess, report that I have a new team member who will be joining my team starting on Friday. Her name is Amanda Meyer. What's super exciting about that is she did work for me back 2019, I think, was when she left, but she had worked for me for a number of years as part of the team here in the city of Victoria, so we are very excited to have her back. So it couldn't come at a better time,
Yeah.
because she's familiar with the city, and she most recently was the city engineer for the city of Cottage Grove, so she's going to be a big help for me and my team, so.
That's fantastic. I mean, we do have a lot going on, and everything is kind of, feels like it's happening all at one time. And so to our residents who are wondering what we're thinking here, there is a method to our madness. We do know what we're doing, we think, and there's a lot of stuff going on, but we beg your patience while we work our way through all of these details. So, yeah, so I'm thrilled that you're getting some help. I mean, there's a lot of big earth movers hanging around town here.
And it's exciting to have somebody who's very familiar with the city and very familiar with a lot of the staff here, so,
Great. Well, we will look forward to welcoming Amanda and putting her straight to work.
yes. So, any questions about any of that?
Council, this all looks like stuff we talked about.
Can I ask, since you're here, another question?
Sure.
Just in general, are things seeming to be on track with all of our construction projects or are we seeing any delays with weather, or are things looking, I know we're still early, but
It's my job to endlessly worry about them, so I do a lot of worrying about them. With the 5 and 11 project, we saw some delays in our approvals, so I would have rather been awarding that contract tonight instead of 2 weeks from now. In terms of the projects that are under construction, nothing has been reported that has been of concern other than the usual endless coordination with utility companies. That's always a challenge on these projects.
the one on Bavaria, right? There was supposed to be something that got pushed to schools. That didn't delay anything.
No.
Right? They just switched the timing of.
Correct, yeah, just to make sure school buses
Yep.
could get where they needed to go. So, yeah, so far, so good, but now I should find some wood to knock on because I said that out loud.
For sure. All right, thanks. Other questions?
I was worried about stormwater. I'm the water guy. What if this new engineered plan doesn't work out for the stormwater retention cauldron to be underneath the central green area? I mean, what then do we do?
So there will be additional underground stormwater management facilities throughout the other parts of the project that I don't currently have open. So we're working closely with Mr. Matt Pavic from the development team on all of those things.
Please.
civil engineer working with the development team. So we had meeting with Kara and her team to talk about strategies to combine our efforts for stormwater. And the first piece is the underground tank that would go under the central green area. That's going to take care of Steiger, the central green, portions of our project likely. There'll be some sharing of commingling of some stormwater there. We also have earmarked another location for underground, which would go underneath the parking lot of the retail at the south end. I don't know if you want to pull up that old.
I got it.
Alternative plan.
Right here.
Right there, yep.
And the blue doesn't work on my home printer, so
So that's,
hopefully that didn't show up on the TV.
that's location number 2, and then a third would be in our green space between the condo and the apartment buildings
Okay.
up there. So we're kind of putting them around the site to manage that stormwater.
And I should note that too, the basin adjacent to Highway 5 that's there right now, that you can see after the trees were all cleared, that's getting expanded as part of the 5 and 11 project, and then an additional basin is being built north of where the Jersey barriers are right now that are adjacent to Steiger Lake Lane. So there's lots of stormwater management facilities being built between essentially all 3 projects, and all of them are being coordinated together to make sure we're satisfying the regulatory requirements, and we're in regular communication with Minnehaha Creek Watershed District on how to make the pieces all come together.
I'm sure you guys will do it. I just don't want all of a sudden Carl to have a 4-acre storm pond in the middle of the development because there's no other solutions.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Other questions for Ms. Guerin, as long as we get her on the microphone, or the development team? All right. Seeing none, there are no more items on our regular agenda this evening, so on to reports and emerging issues. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff this evening?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Anything from the council? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We stand adjourned.